The scores are tied at 1.5 points apiece in Arjun Erigaisi versus Gukesh at the Deathmatch 2.0. They have traded one blow apiece with one draw, and now we are in Chess 960 format with all the pieces scrambled on the last rank. Gukesh and Arjun shake hands and off we go. Arjun begins with knight to g3. As you can see, the pieces are differently placed because this is the Chess 960 format, and now Gukesh taking his time because this is the first time he's seeing this position. And he pushes his pawn to b5, opening up his queen. Arjun instantly pushes his pawn to e3, opening up his bishop towards the pawn on b5. How is Gukesh going to react? He's known for his creative brand of play, even in classical chess. So Chess 960 is a format that he should enjoy a lot. Knight comes out to g6 and Arjun pushes his pawn to b4. This is an interesting opening that's building up. Also, now White's idea is to play a4 and gain some space and play on the queen side. I wonder if Gukesh can go a5 here, which seems like a good move, but instead he plays in the center with e5, gaining more space. Now Arjun can play a4. Let's see if he goes for it. It can be a very interesting move. And Arjun thinks and pushes his pawn to a4. I already like White's position here somehow, with the queen getting activated here, the bishop getting active here. After b takes a4, you play queen takes a4, and now the a7 pawn is a bit weak, but notice how the rook and the bishop are also attacking the b4 pawn. White has to decide about his knight here, but for now, let's see how Gukesh reacts. It's not at all an easy position to play for both sides. Gukesh down to 5 minutes 55 seconds. Arjun has 6 minutes 40 seconds on the clock. He plays his knight to e6. Now if you see, both the knights are placed in this way and somehow are getting dominated by the pawn on e3. Arjun plays his knight out to c3. And although black has more space in the center, it seems like white pieces are more harmoniously positioned. Will Gukesh go for even further space grab with d5? Oops, that's an illegal move. The pawn cannot move yet. So first, it might make sense to get your bishop out and castle. But the moment you get your bishop out, the knight jumps into f5 to attack the bishop. Very difficult position here for both sides, because it's the first time that they are playing it, and sometimes when you're not aware of the tactical possibilities, it can just blow up in your face. c6 played here by Gukesh, closing his queen. Not particularly a great idea. A very interesting move here is to play b5, because if you take this pawn, then the rook can take here, followed by the knight jumping in to these squares. So this is possible for Arjun to push his pawn to b5, and he's thinking about it, but instead he just plays his bishop to e2. As a commentator here, it's really even difficult for me to understand what's going on. Although the bar is a big help, it shows that Arjun is better here and has the slightly better position. Well, I kind of get it. That's because the pawn on e3 does much better job of limiting the knights than the pawn on e5. And there you can see the knight has jumped into f5, attacking the bishop here on e7 and also looking at the g7 pawn. Gukesh says, I'm simply going to castle here. Nicely castled by him over there. And he will lose his bishop here. But he's okay with that, I believe. He's fine with losing his bishop, because he has the center control in the position. Maybe another good idea here for Arjun is to just castle it out. That might also be feasible. Taking his time here, Arjun, and now I believe taking the bishop is the best, but he goes bishop a3. And he is attacking here on the diagonal. And his plan is to take and push the pawn to b5. That seems like the plan. Gukesh says, I'm taking the center here. Wow. This is a brave move by Gukesh. But it's time for Arjun to snatch the bishop on e7. For now, he's ahead on the clock by roughly a minute. 5 minutes, 10 seconds for Arjun. 4 minutes, 25 seconds for Gukesh. I would say take, and pushing the pawn to b5, attacking here could be an idea, but then the pawn would move to c5, and that would be a massive center for white. Arjun says, I'm going to castle it out first. So he also castles here. Bishop goes to f6. So Gukesh, in a way, has saved his bishop. But on the other hand, now the d6 square is available for the knight. Also, the queen on a8 seems so passive, but b5 played and Gukesh very quickly pushes his pawn to c5. And I think he's happy with this development because look at these pawns. These are monstrous pawns. White has absolutely no center control. Such positions are only possible in chess 960 because in classical chess or in normal chess, everything has been worked out, right? But here, it's completely new position, and I think Arjun should enter with his knight on d6, try to win this bishop on c8. That seems like a good plan for him. He's thinking very seriously here. And he plays in a knight to d6. 3 minutes 45 seconds for Arjun. He's taken a lot of time while Gukesh still has 4 minutes 25 seconds. For every move you make, you get 2 seconds more. Now, the problem here is that if you play bishop d7, trying to sort of keep your bishop, then bishop f3 really creates big issues. So he goes rook d8. Arjun says, okay, thank you so much for the bishop. Rook takes. Gukesh says, thank you so much for the center control. It's a fight of ideologies here. Bishop g4. I love this move because he's attacking the knight. And I think after take, it might sort of hamper the pawn structure here for black. How is Gukesh going to continue here? He pushes his pawn to e4 and somehow he's opened up his bishop. You can feel it that the black position is becoming more coordinated. The knight now can jump to e5. It is looking here. The bishop is threatening to take here. And Arjun, I think he should take here on e6. But instead he goes queen a6. And this is not the most accurate move because now the rook can move to e8, defending the knight on e6. That feels like the idea to pursue here for black. Just rook e8, and then if he takes, you take back with the rook. Gukesh taking his time because he also has another move to consider, which is bishop takes c3. Should he take that or should he play rook e8 here? I love the intensity here. Rook e8 played. And Arjun now has to decide. The queen on a8 hasn't moved yet, but it's doing a brilliant job of defending the pawn on d5. Can Arjun actually push his pawn to b6, a b6, rook b6, and then attack even more on the e6 square? But that could be a problem because then the queens get traded. And in a way, you can see that the black queen has not even moved a single time in the game. So to play b6 means that you're going to trade two pieces which have had a very different life story. The white queen has moved like several times to reach a6. And that's the reason why Arjun is looking at all the possibilities here. But I'm sure he's not very happy with his position. One more plan is knight e2 to avoid all the bishop c3 ideas. Hesitating there, Arjun, but he needs to make his move. He's down to 2 minutes 10 seconds. He pushes his pawn to b6. And I think Gukesh must take it because the threat is also to play b7, queen a7, ba7. There are many, many problems in the position. And Gukesh takes. Rook takes. And now, first you can trade the queens. And then bishop takes c3 is an idea. I really like that bishop c3 move, because once that happens, and imagine that bishop c3, dc3, the pawns completely lose their ability to break in the position. So first queen trade, takes, and there you have it. Gukesh takes. And now he plays his knight to e5. Bishop goes back to e2. He doesn't even take on e6. Look at this. c4 is an idea, but first rook a8 played. So these two knights are wonderfully placed. The rook is more active. The bishops are passive. There's no pawn break coming in. This is actually a very big advantage for Gukesh here. And Arjun has to tread very carefully here. Maybe rook b1 or rook a1, perhaps better move. He goes bishop c1. I guess it's time to take on a6. Gukesh is thinking a bit. He's completely focused there. Two minutes 5 seconds for Gukesh. 1 minute 46 seconds for Arjun Erigaisi. What is Gukesh thinking here? He has a plan of c4 blocking the bishop, but he first takes and plays his rook to b8, because if he went rook a8, there was a problem with bishop b7 and taking on d5. So first he's played rook b8, stopping bishop b7. Bishop goes back to e2. Well, that does look a bit passive, but for now it's not so easy to break through as black. White will try to maybe break with f3 to get some breathing space. Clearly c4 break is not happening. Rook d1 could attack d5, but the knight can always defend it. For Gukesh, it's like, he has control, but when you have control, the chances of losing it are also high. So you need to be careful, but with 1 minute 10 seconds, it's not so easy. It's not so simple. And he's down to just 57 seconds on the clock. What is Gukesh thinking? He needs to use his time wisely. He's better. He can make many moves. Rook b1 played. Arjun goes rook d1. But he's not really threatening to take this pawn because the bishop is hanging. So you can play something else. He goes f5. Logical there. Now Arjun has more time on the clock. 1 minute 20 seconds. What is his plan going to be? And Arjun also taking his time here. 1 minute for him. He pushes his pawn to f4. If Gukesh takes, then pawn takes. At least you get more breathing space. Later you will push your pawn to f4. Bishop would come out to f3. So maybe an idea is to just ignore it and move the knight away. But 30 seconds for Gukesh. He goes knight d7. And which is a pretty good move. Arjun tries to open up the position again. g4. It is in Gukesh's interest to keep it closed. Yes, he does so with g6. King comes up to f2. Knight to b6. Look at the knights looking at a4, c4. This knight also pretty well placed. And Arjun takes. Pawn takes. 43 seconds for Arjun. 29 for Gukesh. 1.5 points each in the match. Couldn't be more level than this. For now, it seems like Gukesh has the upper hand. But it's not so clear. He pushes c4. But that's not a great idea because now d4 is possible. He pushes d4. Good move there. Look at the pawns in the center for black. Huge pawns there. And Arjun is feeling the pressure. He's down to 17 seconds. Pawn takes, pawn takes. And maybe bishop a3 could be an idea. No, he first goes king e1. And time to bring your king into the game as black. He goes knight a4. Well, that's also a good move. Bishop d2, and you can keep the rook with rook b2. But Gukesh takes, which is also fine. King takes, and now knight c3 check, and he's completely winning because after bishop c3, dc3 is winning. Otherwise, you just take this bishop. No, he goes king f7. Still better, much better. He pushes his pawn to e3. Arjun comes up, bishop b4. This is the part where Arjun is really good. Look at Gukesh taking the queen. c5. The c pawn is moving ahead. Arjun also takes his queen. Both the players making a statement without saying a word. Pawn to c6. It seems like the c pawn is immensely strong. Now you need to bring your king in. King e6. It's very important to use your king to stop the pawn. Gukesh down to 4 seconds plays the best move. King e6. Arjun goes bishop a6 and now knight d5. Very important, but he blunders with d3. c7. There's no way to stop this pawn from queening. He goes knight g2 check. King f1. And now e2 check takes here. The e1 square is controlled. Gukesh loses. He's unhappy. He's kind of stunned there. Looking at the board. Unhappy. But Arjun takes the lead in the match. 2.5, 1.5. The match is getting more and more intense with every game passing by. But what a game that was.